You like things. In fact, when you like something so much that it consumes you, takes up every part of your brain, becomes your main source of motivation for getting through the day, scrolling for content or updates on that very specific topic. It's obsession. Okay, getting obsessed as a way to improve your art may seem obvious to point out, but there are reasons why unfortunately is in the title. You'll find out soon enough. But outside of that, there are positive obsessions and ways to facilitate them. Like, it can be something you consume. Video games, shows, niche comics, or, as has been a main motivator for me throughout the years, a solid rock for me to rest my little head on, creating my own stories. That makes it sound like I eat rocks. I don't eat rocks. Creating characters that you can play around with has such a distinct thrill. There's something about seeing the way your world just opens up to make room for all these tales, also rich and impactful. Making little animatics over my favorite video game dialogue, except it's my own character speaking instead of the video game character. It's just, it makes me feel so happy. It's so cool. It makes me feel like I'm making my own little series, which I really will do, hopefully. Eventually. Please. As an example of how obsession facilitates creation, I got so obsessed with a lot of different Indian movies. I've just been binging different types of them, and also different like Indian shows because I wanted to regain more of my knowledge in Hindi. And there's this movie called Darlings. It's a film that has a lot of sensitive topics within it. Notably, it tackles domestic violence and the pressure to stay within those dynamics with its main character Badru and her husband. But it also shifts into a dark comedy in the latter half when she decides to get back at him. I do want to say, by the way, I don't think it's a perfect film. I enjoyed the parts that I enjoyed and didn't enjoy what I didn't. But what really caught me off guard about this movie was a side plot with the main character's mother and this guy who's been helping Badru and her mom. It was this little thing in my head where the mother somewhat reminded me of my own girl that I draw a lot, Amy, and this guy who's been helping them really reminded me of the guy that I pair up with Amy, Callum. Now, sometimes when we're watching stuff, we say, oh, this thing reminds me of this other thing. Cool, okay, whatever. And I thought it was going to be that same thing. I thought that this thought process was going to have no consequence, especially because it builds up this supposed dynamic that the main character Badru will go after this guy since he's the foil person to her husband, with him helping Badru and her mom throughout the story. But he then goes and confesses that, no, he's not trying to date Badru, he's trying to date Badru's mom. So I ended up going down the biggest rabbit hole and created an entire fucking alternate universe where my girl, Amaranthia, has a grown kid, and Callum is like this guy who's just going through his life and very poorly trying to flirt with her. We have an entire comic that I wrote, and like 6 separate illustrations, and an entire animatic/animation that I have running through my head of the song Humans Touch. Like, what's going on? It's like an entire rom-com fantasy slice of life. I don't know how I got here, okay? Callum's very poorly trying to flirt with Amy, and it's going great or terribly. Somehow I have created way more art of this than of the actual things I'm supposed to be working on. And if there's any example of how obsession facilitates creation, I think this is probably it. But part of all this is accepting that you're not always going to be drawing or creating whatever thing you are making, whether it be because you're working 12-hour shifts in healthcare and want to jump off a cliff. That's not relevant to my life, of course. Or are putting grueling hours into schoolwork. Sometimes you have to step away from art and just exist. We draw to communicate our experiences and interpretations of media, of life, and it'd be a shame if we didn't have any of those to draw from. Sometimes some of these experiences, positive and negative and unbearably mundane, or suicidal, are so impactful that they become art in and of itself. Venting your frustrations over your godforsaken job, fangirling over the nichest fucking shit. My god, nobody I try rambling to knows what any of the stuff I am putting on the screen is. Drawing a giant flock of teeny tiny birds that woke you up at like 5 a.m. with their tweets. It all counts. I think a lot of us are overwhelmed by what to consume, lists growing and growing as to what games we should play, the most optimized 10 out of 10 recommended shows to watch, YouTube essays stacked higher and higher, and I feel like a way that's helped me is to just treat it not like a bucket list, but as a browsing list, a maybe list. Maybe I'll never get to that game that everyone's recommended me. Maybe I'll just try out this manga that no one's ever mentioned. I've heard it described like picking from a wine cellar, that not every wine has to be chugged. It's just you choosing one for the right occasion. Our lives aren't to-do lists. Milestones are made up, and while some may be meaningful to you, I don't know if I finished my backlog of anime, even the ones I didn't like, yet still for some reason stuck through and watched all of it, is going to feel fulfilling. We can't guarantee that everything we do is going to bring us maximum joy, maximum improvement. We're not robots, we're not algorithms, and that's a good thing. I don't know why we keep expecting perfection from imperfect human beings. Obsession doesn't even have to apply to what I just said. You can obsess over getting good at a single part of art. For a while, I was fixated on this improvement map for drawing. Months and months spent following a set of challenges, from perspective to color to character design. And as an ADHD brain who is allergic to ADHD medication does, I skipped around a lot, focusing on what I was really passionate about, wanting to get better at before dropping most of the list, especially because some of these guidelines just aren't my brain's vibe. They might be yours, which is perfectly reasonable. It's personal preference. All that matters is that you got enough dopamine to last you a little while. Same can be said when it comes to drawing a very specific subject, like these losers that I draw 500 times over. Committing to doing like 15 minutes of art a day, or really being into a specific medium. And hear me out on this, tracing paper. Tracing paper. Listen, the way you can layer it, how colored pencils just glide and pop off the page, the fact you can just slap on any type of surface underneath and it just gives this hazy, ethereal translucency as if you are ascending to godhood. Tracing paper! It's all good. In fact, with me listing this much goodness, I think we're all set. You have your tools to create now. There's nothing after this point in the video. Okay, I lied. Hypothetically, there are worse ways to obsess and worse things to be obsessed over. Things that, instead of bringing you closer to drawing, are on many people's papers as their reason for stepping away from art. So as a totally non-relevant example to my life, art relies on other people, especially in capitalistic systems. If you want to survive by creating something, that something has a price tag on it, one that is now integral to your survival, which means that this means of expression, something that we've used to communicate since the dawn of time, is now reliant not just on your own ideas, but on how much attention and profit you get from those ideas. In pre-social media days, obsessing over how you are comparing to other people was obviously still a thing, but in rural, small communities where you're mostly focused on your own life, there wasn't a lot of time to glance over at how the girl in your art class has way more social media followers, even though you've both been working on the same thing for the same amount of time, mostly because comparison was more focused on how much you had to eat, the access to clean water, basic necessities, which applies to many people today too. A lot of people don't have the time to focus on the luxuries of self-actualization, passions left astray because they have to focus on survival first. Honestly, jealousy feels yucky. It really disgusts and disheartens me whenever I've felt it, especially because I know that I love what other people around me create. More art is more art, more people expressing themselves, and that's all I could ask for. I know that these emotions are rooted in that human need to compare, to know what life could supposedly be like if you just had a little bit more money, a little bit more fame, a little bit more support for this thing you love doing, no strings attached. It's something that's been honed to a razor-sharp point with how algorithms carefully feed us. What it thinks will make us obsess a little more. Scroll just a little farther. Check the notifications just one more time. Please, just one more time. This time it will be. But it's not pleasant, especially for those who are anxiety prone or depression prone or are on social media at all. It's really unpleasant. Finding ways to realize you are not better or worse than anyone is an important step to take, especially because saying that I'm lesser than someone implies the kind of egotistical statement that I'm better than someone too, as if my life is on a leaderboard to be compared to others. And I don't want to think about my life and others in that way, you know? Besides, getting really obsessive with numbers fucking sucks. Fuck algorithms. All my homies hate algorithms. Especially because it can spur you to obsess over all the positive things we mentioned, like wanting to improve in art, to the point where you do studies and read up on how to get better, so much so that you burn out. I think some of the happiest moments I have are when I get to share art with friends and see their stuff in return. It's the biggest joy, a symbiotic, reciprocal relationship with no stakes in it, no money to be made. And sometimes you just keep pieces to yourself, or limit it to that small, cozy circle of peers. No expectations, just true, holy you, every dark or brilliantly bright or blaringly mundane idea just there, with only a select few as its witness. Ephemeral, not quite in the permanent, non-linear timeline the internet presents your art in, but in the now. How do we find local community? Well, there's lots of different ways. Local libraries and different IRL spaces you can look up online can always help. Maybe signing up for an art class or a weekly art club does the trick. It could be online or in person. A group chat where your friends share art for fun. I mostly stick to sharing art in group chats and showing friends in real life my little snippets of what I'm making. It really lowers a lot of the expectations I have about how much profit can I make off of this thing, because in these moments, I don't care. Sure, you may have to focus on all that stuff outside of this little chat box or face-to-face conversation, but in these little moments, you are present in the ways you can be. The birds are chirping softly, trees rustling outside your abode. It is warm, the world is kind, and you are content.